Gareth, great to see you, and I have to say you look really much better than when we last saw you. Much better rested and recovered. I mean, look, first time we've spoken to you since the morning after that final. If I could start with that, how have you reflected on that, the final, and the whole experience you had back then? Have you looked back at the game? Have you had a chance to analyse it, that sort of thing?
Yeah, of course. We were into the office the following week, reviewing the whole tournament, really. Of course, the final is the fresh part in everybody's mind, but you've got to review everything because just because we got to where we got to doesn't mean that we had every decision right, and just because we didn't get the win in the final doesn't mean that we were necessarily far off in that. So you end up watching all of the games back, reviewing everything you did across every department, and that's the process of helping everybody improve, really.
Crucially, what have you and the FA done to support the guys that missed the penalties? Sancho, Rashford and Saka. Have you spoken to them all personally? Has the FA offered them support?
Well, I was in touch with them both, with all three of them in the days after the final, and we've then been in touch with their clubs as well, and other people at the FA are also been involved in that. So I think they know there's support if they need, but also they're very keen to move on. You know, they've got a fresh season, they've got fresh challenges. They're all very exciting young players with a lot of exciting times ahead of them, and they were all part of an amazing experience across the summer. So, yeah, I understand the question, but I think for them, they're very much looking forward.
I need to ask you though, Gareth, about the horrific racist abuse that they suffered. I mean, there's a positive side to all of this as well, because we saw the Tottenham fans, for example, give a standing ovation to Bukayo Saka, one of their bitterest rivals, when he walked onto the pitch. So there are some positives there, but the racist abuse has continued. 34% of it from people in this country, we've found out. What do you say about that? It's a complex kind of picture of support and hate mixed in there, isn't it?
Well, I think we discussed this the morning after the final, so there's not a lot to add in terms of my feelings on that initial reaction towards the players. But what has been heartening is to see the reaction in response to that, and I think that's where, you know, the vast majority of people are. The country went on an incredible journey with the team, really, and I think we made a lot of strides in terms of not only what we did on the pitch, but affecting people's thinking off the pitch as well. And yeah, it was hugely disappointing for everybody involved. You know, every member of staff, every player, to see what happened afterwards. You know, not only was the final hard, it's hard to lose a final anyway, but with that and the trouble at the ground, everything just felt completely deflating. So, but as you rightly say, there has been an incredible counter-reaction to that, and I think that shows where we are heading as a country and where ultimately we will get to. That's going to take some time, but the types of response in a positive way that we've seen show everybody the way forward, really.
Let's move on to the squad then that you've just selected. You said Patrick Bamford was close to the squad back in March. He's now made this one. Why now?
Well, I think this is obviously a fresh cycle. We were always going to pick the bulk of the squad from the summer. We're only 2 games into a new season, so we were never looking to make a lot of changes. There are obviously some players. Ben White has had a situation with COVID. Ben Chilwell hasn't played a game since the Champions League final through no fault of his own. So there are other players that haven't had as much football in the squad. But those 2 in particular are kind of ruled out. Phil Foden and Marcus Rashford, of course, injured. So there was an opportunity for us in the forward areas. We were very pleased with what Ollie Watkins did at the end of last season, and now is an opportunity for Patrick as a number 9 as well. I think his progress with Leeds has been excellent. He, very close thing at the end of last season with us, and this is a good chance for him to come back in. We work with him at under 21 level, so we know him anyway, and a fabulous moment for him and his family.
A disappointment, I'm sure, for Mason Greenwood. He started the season very well for Manchester United, 2 goals in 2 games for him. Why is he not in your thoughts?
Yeah, well, he is in our thoughts, very much. I've spoken with him and with his club. He's a player we really like, and we think he's going to be, he's got every possibility to be a top England player. We're all very conscious that we make that progression at the right time. He is just breaking into the team at Manchester United with a lot of responsibility. That's a big thing for a young player to deal with, and we want to get that progression with our seniors as well as we possibly can, so that we get the best possible player at the end. So we're all aligned on that. Mason, the club, his family, us, and we feel at the moment the best thing for him after these first few games is he stays with his club. But he's very much a player that we like. It's clear on his performances at the moment he would warrant being in the squad, absolutely.
Hey, thank you for that. Look, I'll let the other guys ask you about Jesse Lingard and maybe a bit more on Ben Chilwell. But Harry Kane is in the squad as we expected. He's only had 20 minutes of football since the Euros final. And he's now missed out on that dream move potentially to Manchester City. Do you fear where he's at emotionally and physically? He may not be in the best place right now.
Well, the physical part is a really difficult one for us, because we had this. It was even worse for us last September. We had players who hadn't even played a league game. The whole squad hadn't played a league game. This time, we're going to have some players who were short of competitive match minutes, because our players ended up back later than most of the rest. So some have had some pre-season games. 1 or 2, like Johnstone's, hasn't had matches yet this season. So Harry's in that bracket, but he got into the game at the weekend. I'm expecting that he'll play a fair part tonight. The good thing from our point of view is that it looks as though everything is resolved and settled club-wise now. So he's got a clear focus now, and I'm sure he's looking forward to getting out on the pitch with Tottenham now, and then with us next week.
Last one from me then, Gareth. I mean, you said very understandably that you want your players to be playing at the very highest level, playing in the biggest games that they possibly can, and of course that means Harry Kane won't be involved in the Champions League again this season. Are you disappointed for him that he hasn't got that move?
Well, we had 4 or 5 players in and around our starting teams in the summer who'd played no European club football, I think, in their lives. Jordan Pickford, Declan Rice, Calvin Phillips, Jack Grealish. So, of course you ideally want your players playing in those big competitions, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they can't go into an international tournament and play at a fantastic level. So, because I think those other players did. Their club situations are what they are. We always pick up not the aftermath, but whatever's going on at a player's club. Sometimes that can give them motivation when they come with us. Sometimes they can come off the back of a final that they've lost, or something that is something we have to deal with. So we're very much used to that. I don't know if there's any other players who might possibly be on the move before we meet. That often is the case in September as well. But in terms of Harry's situation, it's settled. It looks like he's going to be a Tottenham player, and that's obviously fantastic for Tottenham especially.
Thanks, Rob. Next we'll take a couple of questions from Carrie Brown at beIN Sports.
Hello, Gareth. I'm going to cast your mind back to December 2019. We didn't know what was ahead of us then. And you said you believed that your squad would peak to win a major trophy at the World Cup in Qatar. Do you still think that's progressing as you hoped in terms of the squad of players that you can select from, or has COVID actually disrupted that at all?
Well, I think we have been involved in 3 competitions in the last 4 years where we've been in the semi-final of each, and no other country's been in the semi-final of 2 of those. So that gives you an indication of how competitive international football is, how many good teams there are, especially in Europe. You know, it's a very, very strong continent in terms of the quality of teams and quality of opponent. But it also shows the consistency that our players, the core of whom have been in all 3 of those tournaments, although we've obviously got a lot of young ones who've come in, they've shown tremendous consistency, and we've always wanted to be knocking in on the door in those latter stages of competitions, because you eventually get to learn how to win semi-finals and how to win finals. That's normally the process, if you look at a lot of our successful club teams, that they've had to go through. So, you know, that's the way we view it. We know that we were the youngest team in the last 16. We were the least experienced in terms of international caps. And so there's no doubt that individually these players are going to improve and continue to improve. And that's got to be our aim as a team as well. We've learned a huge amount from the wins we've had and from the disappointment in the World Cup semi-final and in the finals this time. But we're obviously a lot closer than we've been for a long period of time.
Do you still believe with this group of players and the progression that your best chance of winning a major trophy is the World Cup?
Well, we've always had squads of players that have had opportunities to win things. We've had squads with far more experience in terms of European club titles than this team have got. We've got some European winners, which is fantastic. We were 9 games unbeaten in the summer in normal time and extra time, and we were behind for I think 7 minutes or 9 minutes in the whole tournament. So I don't have any less faith in the group of players than I had at any time during the summer.
And going back to Harry Kane, if a club wants to get rid of a player because they have greater ambitions, they can find their ways to do that. There's been a lot of negativity over Harry Kane suggesting he wanted a move out of the club. Is it unacceptable for a player to have grand ambitions?
Well, that's between the players and their clubs, really. It's not really any of my business as an international manager. When players are coming back from injury, whether they're involved in transfer speculations, whatever their form may be, they're the bits we have to pick up. So we will remind the team of what they did in the summer when they arrive. We'll get them focused on the qualification for Qatar. We've got 2 critical away games in particular, with the trips to Budapest and to Warsaw. We've got a lot of work to do. Everybody's talking about us potentially winning a World Cup. You have to qualify first, and those 2 games against good teams in packed stadiums are going to be really difficult for us.